So, hi, folks. I'm here with Flower Darby, who is the Assistant Dean of Online and Innovative Pedagogy at Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff, Arizona. And Flower, thank you for coming. I brought Flower here for a couple of reasons. We're going to have a general conversation about science of learning and remote and online teaching. But also, as many of you know, because you've heard me talk about it, Flower wrote a terrific book that is paired with Jim Lang's book, which is the Small Teaching book. Flower Darby's book is Small Teaching for Online.
Small Teaching Online.
Small Teaching Online. Yes, our library has it, and the Center for Excellence, we have copies of the book as well. And it's a terrific read for folks. I'd like you to take a look at it. Flower, thanks for coming today.
Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here.
And I'd just like to talk a little bit about science of learning, because I know that forms the crux of your book in a lot of ways, and it formed the crux of Jim's book. And as the faculty who'll be watching this know, it's something that I talk about extensively, and that is how students learn. And for much of what I have conversations about is how do I do something in class that is designed to maximize student learning? Because the goal is obviously, and it always is in my mind, the most important thing is how do I improve the student experience so that they learn as effectively as possible? And so in my world, I talk about things such as retrieval enhanced memory and interleaving and some of these techniques that really lead to more effective student learning and more integrated learning. I was wondering if you could just comment a little bit on how those translate into the online environment and the ways faculty can use those kinds of understandings of those ideas in a way that opens up different pedagogies for them, given all of the things going on right now.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. This is definitely something I've thought extensively about it. My real takeaway, the thing that I would really like to emphasize above and beyond anything else, is the importance for increased support in online and remote environments. For better or worse, it is the case that students working through online classes or participating remotely are more on their own than they would be when they're fully engaged with you in person in the classroom. And keeping in mind that isolation, and despite everything that we do to build community, which we should do in our online spaces, but it's still the case that they are less involved with you on a regular basis. And so it's so very possible to build in supports based on what we know from the science of learning, to build in opportunities for retrieval practice, generative answering, again, strengthen those patterns. There's lots of things that we can do with the tools right inside of the learning management system, right inside of Brightspace, that provides that support that online students need more of. And I would argue, once you begin to get familiar with some of those approaches, you can bring them into your in-person classes too, and they will totally enhance what you're doing in the classroom. So taking advantage of the tools of the LMS and what we know about the science of learning, you can make a powerful paradigm for your students.
It's really great information. And I'm not sure if you saw, there was a survey that came out yesterday from an organization, FACA, I think is the organization, that looked at what the student experience was like when they went remote in the spring. And we have a survey like that as do most institutions. And what you're saying is really highlighted in those surveys. The students wanted more support. They wanted more community building. And I think that's a really, really excellent point, in that students need the communication so they know what's going on, and they need to feel like they've got the support they need to manage things when things become challenging. And it's funny, you talk about how they're doing this alone. I was in a meeting yesterday, and I used the word remote extensively to differentiate it from online. And our faculty don't like it anymore because they looked it up and said, remote seems like they're alone. They're all by themselves. And so they want to come up with a new term that is like remote. So it's you're not face-to-face, but a term that captures the notion that they're not doing this by themselves. They have that community support. So I think that's a terrific thing for you to talk about.
And if I could just expand on that just a little bit, for me, the difference is when you attend classes in person, you walk into a physical room and there are people around you that you can draw some physical reassurance from, and we learn from other people all the time. But the other thing that happens in our in-person classes is we ourselves draw all kinds of connections for students without even realizing that we're doing it. So we might provide some informal guidance such as, remember what we were doing last Thursday? Well, that's really going to prepare us for what we have to do today. And all of that stuff is crucial to student learning, but it doesn't happen by accident in an online space. And so that's what I mean about providing very intentional supports to acknowledge that it's most likely that your students are doing their work by themselves in their own environment, just like you and I are by ourselves in our home offices. So just keeping that at the forefront of the mind that sure, we want the community, but it just doesn't happen as naturally as it does when we're teaching and learning in person.
Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate your comments, and and thanks for spending just a few minutes with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.